Levi and Deborah Frazier of the Blue City Cultural Center in Memphis, Tennessee. So just a reminder of two things. Number one, like the previous one was a bit, this one's going to be even more interactive. So be prepared for the possibility that you're going to get pulled into the play. That's the first thing to say. The second thing to say is remember that we're going to finish this one. We'll have a brief discussion, and then we've decided we're going to re-record last night's play. So if you'd like to stay on just a bit and hear what you may have missed Saturday night live, then by all means, feel free to do that. But that's mainly to make sure that we have a good, strong recording of last night's very moving performance as well. So let us begin this morning with John chapter 4, starting at verse 25. The woman said to him, I know that the Messiah is coming, who is called the Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us. Jesus said to her, I am he, the one who is speaking to you. Just then his disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman. But no one said, what do you want? Or why are you speaking with her? Then the woman left her water jar, went back to the city. She said to the people, come and see a man who told me everything I've ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he? They left the city and were on their way to him.
Well, come to Jacob's well. There is a man there speaking about living water. Come to the well. Come to
What
Jacob.
are you screaming about? Are you out here looking for a lover in these streets?
I met a man, and I am a new creature.
A new creature? Well, you look the same to me. Maybe a little worse. Are you really looking for a new man in these streets? A new way to find a man? Is that what you're doing?
I met a man who told me all that I had ever did. Is not this the Christ?
The Christ.
Is not this the miracle worker? Is not this the Christ who performed miracles? I'm sure that many of you have heard of the miracles that Christ has performed in Cana and Bethlehem and Nazareth. Please tell this man so I can change him. Do you know of any of the miracles that Christ performed? Tell us one.
He turned water into wine.
Yes.
And do you believe that?
I do.
See, there are others who have heard, and maybe some who have seen. Anybody else? Have you heard? Yes. Christ walked.
And you believe that?
Yeah, one more. Is there one more that you know of a miracle of the Christ? The miracle of. Yes. Sight restored. See, if you listen to the Christ, you too may be changed. He told me all the secrets.
Secrets about how you treated my brother.
I went to the well to get water, as I usually do. And as I was preparing to leave, this stranger said to me in a kind and gentle voice, give me to drink. And when I turned, I said, oh, how could you ask me, a woman of Samaria, to give you drink? You are a Jew and you have no dealings with Samaritans.
As Samaritans should not have any dealings with the Jews. Oh, yes. because they look at us as mongrels, a mixed race. But oh, have you heard of the story that they tell about the Good Samaritan? Oh, he was such a great person. The Good Samaritan. He sees this man lying in the streets, beaten and robbed and in bad shape, possibly by a Hebrew. But here comes the Good Samaritan. After two Hebrews have come by and looked at the man, not only two Hebrews, but two Hebrews who worked in the temple. They look at him and pass on. But the Good Samaritan takes him up, but before then, cleans and bandages his wounds, puts him on his ass that he was riding on, and walks and takes him to the inn, and then tells the innkeeper, please take care of him. If he has need of anything, put it on my account. The Good Samaritan. When is there, or is there a good Jew to take care of the Samaritans? Or do we do all this for them?
But this Jew was the embodiment of divine love.
Divine love. Divine love. See, you are a Samaritan and you should know. Oh, no. You are a traitor. You act as if we Samaritans are children of Ishmael and not Isaac.
When I spoke to him, he said, if you knew the gift of God, if you knew who asked for drink, he would have given you living water. At the time, I did not understand what he meant. And I said, dear sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. And this living water, are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well, who drank from this well, he and his children and his cattle? And he said, the water that you get from this well, you will thirst again. But the water that I shall give you, you shall never thirst. The water that I shall give you shall be like a well springing up into everlasting life. And I said, Lord, give me that water. Give me that water that I will never thirst, that I will never have to come here to draw again. And then he said the strangest thing to me. He said, go and get your husband.
And what did you say to that? You are an adulterous woman. You go with any man who will give you money and pleasure. You are a Jezebel.
I told him the truth. I told him.
Truth. That's new.
I said, Lord, I have no husband. And he said, that is true. You have told the truth. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one that you are with now is not your husband. And all I could say is, sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet.
A prophet? Everybody knows the kind of person you are. Your reputation precedes you. It doesn't take a prophet to see that.
He pierced my heart. His words pierced my soul. And so I said, Lord, we worship in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is where we ought to worship.
Yes. Yes, we do worship in this mountain, as our father Jacob did. And he said, Jerusalem? Oh, no, couldn't be. No. Mm-mm.
He said that soon we will not worship in this mountain, but nor in Jerusalem, because Samaritans know not what we worship, but the Jews know what they worship, because salvation is of the Jews.
Wait. We know not what we worship. Salvation is of the Jews. Oh, no. Do we not worship the same God in the same way?
Yes, but he said, he said that true worshipers will worship God in spirit and in truth. And he seeketh those who worship him in spirit and in truth. For God is a spirit, and we must worship him in spirit and in truth.
Spirit.
And I said to him, I said, sir, when the Messiah comes, which is called the Christ, when he comes, he will tell us all things. And he said, I that speak to you am he. I that speak to you am he. I was with the Christ,
Oh, no.
with the Messiah. I realize now, oh, the men that I was with, the relationship that I was in, all of this, I was looking for Christ.
But the way you treated my
No.
brother, you did not.
Your brother was looking for Christ.
But see, no.
You are looking for Christ. We are looking for Christ. Look, please come. I must tell others. I must tell everyone. Please come to Jacob's well. This man speaks of living water. The well. Oh my God. I forgot my well. I forgot my water pot. It is at the well. But it is well with my soul. It is well. Oh, please come. I must tell others. I must tell them, please come to Jacob's well. Christ is there. He will speak to you of living water. He will speak to us of living
We
water.
know not who we worship. We worship in the mountains as our father Jacob did. Water that you would drink and you will never die. The Messiah, the Christ. Living water. Maybe there is something more to Jacob's well than water. I will go.
أشهد عنك يا إلهي واسمك يتعلى.
Okay.
We had a little technical difficulty, and it said that many came to Christ because of the story of the woman. So, she was able to bring many.
Then they went out of the city and came unto him. And many of the Samaritans of that city believed on him for the saying of the woman, which testified, he told me all that I ever did.
Well, thank you very much once again for two wonderful presentations. There's something that I've noticed now that I've been privileged to see all three of what you've brought for us. And that is a couple of things. First of all, you had a wonderful ability to look behind the text, to look at the things that weren't explicitly said, but clearly we wonder about when we read the text. For example, with Daniel, it seems perfectly obvious when you think about it. Well, yeah, people would have asked him, what do you think you're doing, Daniel? Have you thought about what this means for the rest of us? And that was kind of a theme that you have followed, which I found very interesting in all three of your productions. And that is sort of what did the friends around them, what did the people around them think of the central characters' actions? And what might have been those implications? And I thought that was a wonderful way of inviting us into the story. When you were putting these together for us, were there any aspects of doing this that worried you a little bit? That you felt like, well, I'm a little cautious about this, but I think this is the direction we want to go? And if so, could you talk about that a little bit, just in terms of the process? I'm not saying you should have been worried, but I mean, when we're dealing with a text like this, right? There's perhaps a certain caution, and yet you were very bold with what you presented to us, and so I'm glad you weren't too cautious.
Okay, that's an excellent question, because my major concern is not adding one title or one jot. And I wanted to be true to the spirit of the text. At the same time, I wanted whoever saw it to relate to it in a very human way that said, you know what? Either I've been in a similar position as that, or what would I do if I were in a position like that? Would I do this or would I do that? I even at one time talked to Deborah about asking the audience about, you see, telling Daniel, you see, these folks are not on their knees, meaning you guys, you know. but yeah, I tried to be true to the text, but go behind the text and look at our human frailties, our questions, things that we think about when we read the scripture, but sometimes we don't verbalize it, but it's back there in our minds.
I think the major thing that I think about with Daniel is, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, I'm speaking for me, that sometimes my belief is convenient. That when Daniel did what he did, it was not out of convenience. And in America, if we're inconvenienced, it's a problem. But to try and test our faith, we will be inconvenienced in more than one way. And we cannot foretell what that inconvenience is going to be, nor can we tell what the result will be. But if we are in Christ, He will take care of it. He will take care of us. And it may not be how we want it to be, but it will be what it needs to be.
And with this last one, with the woman at the well, you really brought out the skepticism that she surely faced in her community. I thought that that was wonderfully done. And it raised questions for me, not only about the skepticism that we may run into about decisions we're making, faith decisions we're making, but even the inner skepticism. It's almost like the man that Levi was playing is in our head saying, "Oh, come on." So that was I thought a wonderful portrayal of that struggle against the challenges that we face when we're trying to make a decision that's hard for us, and to struggle against that sense of questioning. I thought that was very powerfully done. Thank you very much for that. Friends, are there questions or oh, one more. Is this the first time you've done Bible plays?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your more usual kind of work that you do, particularly with Blue City Cultural Center.
Well, as a writer for Blue City and co-founder and writer, as a writer, I've always tried to kind of do what we're doing now with my secular plays, put people in a position that, before they get there, they say, "Oh, I would do this." But once you get in that position, once you see the play, it's like, would I really do that? Maybe, I need to think about that. And that's what I like. And I also like to shed light on the human experience, of course, that deals with what we're talking about. We have preconceived notions, all of us do. And just to get you to look at those preconceived notions and from the standpoint of somebody else, how does this affect them? Do I say this about people and don't think twice about it because that's the way I feel? But once you get a chance to see behind the facade, behind that person into their heart, would you still say that about them? Would you still feel that way about them? And that's what I like to do as a writer. I was telling somebody last night, I think it was your wife, about a show I wrote called When It Rains. And When It Rains takes place in 1959 in Memphis, Tennessee, during the height of segregation and discrimination. And it's about a lady who's has a beauty shop, Miss Lonnie Mae, on Beale Street. Anybody know Beale Street? Beale Street is a well-known city in Memphis where the blues was played, W.C. Handy. But anyway, she is a beautician, but she's also given abortions in the back room of her beauty shop. And when you see this show, you might be for abortion, you might be against abortion, but when you see it, you will question whether you're for it, and you will question whether you're against it. And you put yourself in a position of the other person that you were at odds with, at least for the time that you see this play, because some things happen that you'll have to say, maybe I am for it, maybe I am against it. And those are the kinds of things I like to write.
Well, when we started Blue City Cultural Center, I said, I just want to act. That's all I want to do. And then I raised $5,000 and I said, "Oh, sure, we're good." And somebody said, "No, you have to do that all the time." And I said, "What? That's what I have to do?" So I had to put my love for acting behind me and raise money until we turned the company over to our daughter about 3 years ago. So I am in heaven. Because y- I look at this and I pray to the Lord and I say, Lord, if we can bring people to you by doing what we're doing now, that is the gift that you have given me. Because it's not about me, it is about us recognizing what true love is. And until we get to that point, because I think Mark asked that question last night, and I went home, I said, I don't think I answered that question. I don't know what I said last night, but I do know that I had a deeper thought, and it was, we have to really know what true love is. And it is beyond, in many cases, our ability to think about how does this affect me? But I will give all. I have this unconditional love for my fellow man. And that is not in a, intellectual sense. It is the people we see, the people we meet. And in that love, that means, do I give them my time? More than anything, do I have time for somebody else? And when Christ went to that well, it was it one of the, I'm gonna get back to it, but it's one of the greatest sermons Christ ever gave was to one person, and it was to that woman at the well. And I didn't realize, because when Levi wrote this part, we had to, make some adjustments. But I said, Levi, who is this guy? And so we made him a brother-in-law, an ex-brother-in-law. So he hated her. And how could she ever say anything that would change his mind? She had had 5 husbands. So she had a lot of folk who didn't like her. But at the same point, in that aspect, she was like Daniel, because now the love that she had for Christ was greater than what she had come to when she got there at first.
I think about the country and western sun, looking for love in all the wrong places. And that's what we do oftentimes. And the real love, or the true love, is the love of Christ. And when we find that, then we're in pretty good shape, because we're able to love others as we should. And another thing, Deb and I were talking about this, one in the back, saying how powerful faith is. And so, man, based on Daniel in the Bible, what we did this morning. I said, so, but the Lord said, but of these 3, faith, hope, and charity, charity is the greatest. I was like, whoa, if charity can be greater than faith, man, we got something. Then I realized faith is based on charity. Hope and faith are based on charity. You got to have love to have true faith. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Friends, are there questions or things that you'd like to share while we have our presenters for a moment here before our third act?
Oh, sorry.
I tried to be quiet and give you all a chance. I just, it's Sunday, so I feel like I need to talk. So I have a few questions. Let's do kind of the easy one first. What's your memorization process? Like, I'm just marveling at you two, just, you know,
Well-
memorizing this. Do you allow your room is it word for word, or do you allow yourself some room for improv? That's question number 1. Question number 2 would be, Levi, I've noticed, even from last night, you've mentioned how you humanize the characters of the Bible stories. That's an important thing, because you've mentioned it a couple times, the humanization, or to make these characters human again for before our eyes and for the audience. Why is that important to you that you're humanizing these Bible characters?
Well, I'll use a scripture. So the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighted in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be utterly cast down, because the Lord upholdeth him with his hand. So even though we fall, we do those things. When I read the scripture and I see an Abraham who lied about his wife, when I see a David who had a man killed, had his wife, and I think, and he and David was greatly beloved of God. Abraham was a friend of God. I said, I got a chance. I got a chance. Thank God I got a chance. You know, so that's how I look. That's why it's important to me. And I feel like it's important to others too, because people who aren't Christians, or maybe who are, but the part about forgiveness and mercy didn't come across to them because they beat themselves up when they make a mistake and say, well, I can't be as good as somebody in the Bible. I just might as well not try. I'll just do my thing. And you say, no, there were some awful things that were done, but God forgave them. And what did the Lord tell the woman who was caught in adultery? He said, do you see any accusers? Go and sin no more. Okay. Who's it?
Your process for memorization.
Ah, I just forgot. So yes, and that's an interesting question, because I think actors have different processes. One process is this: when you go into rehearsal, as you rehearse, you have your blocking. Generally, the first couple of days are spent blocking a show. Most people know what we mean by blocking, where you move on stage. Okay. So I walk over here and I say, that's impossible to do that. Then I say, maybe walk to the center and say, but then again, maybe it is possible. And so once you start memorizing your lines with your blocking, you have gestures and movement that reinforce the memorization. And so that helps. The other process is just going home and trying to memorize your lines in a quiet room and just going at it. But much of the memorization comes in rehearsal. Much of it comes in rehearsal. So that's kind of approach that I take. And then I also look at it like, it'll happen as I go along, and I just have to have faith that it will happen. And I think that's pretty much it. Did I answer? Okay.
I was never good at memorization. And then in 2017, I was in a car accident and had a traumatic brain injury. And so I said, I'll never perform again, because I already struggled. And now I was really struggling. But that's why I know that at this age in my life that the Lord has, told me to be patient, learn your lines, but learn your lines with what else is being said, what is the undercurrent of what it is that you're doing. And now it has become easier because the words have a relationship. And so, living with the writer for the most part, I go back and I ask him, what did you mean by that? What is that supposed? So we actually have discussions. We had discussions about all three plays all through the process, so that we looked at other layers than just what we saw on the surface. Because when we first, particularly when did the woman at the well, I said, well, but the people, everybody came. I mean, people from the whole city came to hear Christ. What are you talking about? And he said, yeah, but people had questions. And then I realized that this one man represented many people within that city because of who she was. They knew who she was. They knew the kind of woman that she was. But there had to be a light in her that now, at least one, they questioned, and two, they changed. Changed enough at least to come and hear this man at the well. And then what it did to his disciples, because they still, when we look at prejudice and racism, they said, why in the world are you talking to that woman? She's from Samaria. And he had to teach them. You know, so as we look at this, it is all encompassing of my life. And I forgot the other question because I'm not the writer.
And one of the things that I liked about, well, this particular piece, when it dawned on me, I said, the Good Samaritan. Whereas we enjoy that story. Samaritan's like, okay, well, where's the good Jew? You know, but they treat us like this, and we got supposed to be good to them. You know, when do we get rescued? And that's human nature, isn't it? I mean, it's so. I mean, you look at it, it's like, in a sense, oftentimes the word Uncle Tom is used in the Black community. So he's looking at her in a sense as if she's an Uncle Tom. Everybody knows what I mean by that. I think everybody knows. A traitor to the Samaritan. You do what the Jews say do, and after they treat us the way they do, and you bow down to them and say, this is the Messiah, you know. And so for her to come in and say what she said, probably knowing what's going to be stated, but the Spirit of God is in her, she does it anyway. And then when she runs up against this person, and he says what he says, and basically calling her a traitor to her people and all that, she has to still have the faith and love to keep going, to put up with that. And how many of us could do that? Very few. Only the Spirit of God could help us.
Just echoing the appreciation for the political realism and the sociological realism that you've added to these stories by raising the questions in the text. So thanks for doing that.
Well, friends, if hearts are clear at this point, then perhaps we should break and set up for Levi and Deborah to re-record the third play from last night. So if you'd like to stay for just a bit longer, and you'll be able to see all three of the plays that Reedwood has commissioned with the Blues City Cultural Center and Levi and Deborah Frazier. So, friends, let's take a break. How much time would you like to set up?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Oh, let's break for 10 minutes, and then that'll be about another 15. So, thank you, friends.